He's been waiting for this opportunity for a lifetime. And no, I'm not talking about this interview, as much as I wish that was the case. Wyoming head coach Jeff Linder enters year one at the helm of the Cowboys. And Jeff, in honor of this interview, I decided to have my mic cover part of your school colors. So I just felt festive in the mood. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. It's an honor to have you on. And you're obviously coming over from the Big Sky. You won the Coach of the Year during the 2018-2019 season. How strong is your fly fishing game?
Man, that's a good question. I just know this. I'm very fortunate to be in one of the best places in the country to fly fish. I do really enjoy it, and I really do know that I'm in a great place to fly fish. And not to name drop, but a colleague in the business, a friend, Mark Few up there at Gonzaga, who is as much of as fly fishes as much as anybody. When I got a phone call from him when I got the job, and him making sure to tell me that, hey, if you get on some good spots, because there's some really good spots down there, let me know and I'll be down there. And so I've been in the short period of time that I've been here, I've had to experience some really good places. Going to experience a couple places this week, and just very fortunate to be in a place like this where you got such great quality water, and it's such a short distance from you.
Look at you taking advantage of this opportunity. Have you had a chance to fly fish with Mark Few at this point?
I've back when I was at Boise, I had fly fished with Coach Few, but since I've been away from Boise and Colorado, he's got his go-to spots up in those neck of the woods. He's really good, so he can get on some places where a lot of people can't get on. But I'm starting to find that out here, and there's some really great places to go. And I'm sure in some point in time he'll be out here. But in the meantime, I bring up my fishing partner from Colorado, Billy Greer, who's the assistant coach at the University of Colorado, who makes his way up here time to time to try to go catch some trout.
I love it. Now, as you took over this job and you were submitting your resume, I want to know, Jeff, where did you put the part where you were a ball boy for the Denver Nuggets?
That was I think probably enough time had passed where I don't put it on the resume. Yeah. But for me, it was just a great experience to have as a young kid. I mean, just where you kind of get over. What was good for me is you get over the fact that you realize that they're ordinary people. I mean, I think that's where for me it helped me as I made my way into coaching, and just kind of with anything I've done is that once you're around those guys, you realize they're just like everybody else. And the opportunity to rebound, probably my most, the thing that I enjoyed the most was rebound from Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. I mean, people just don't realize how good he really was. And if it was today's NBA, the way the game is played now, he would be one of the best guards in the NBA. And just to have the opportunity to watch him and how he shot that ball, he made rebounding really easy.
They might be ordinary human beings, but they don't have ordinary skill sets. And one who certainly displays that is Larry Nance Jr., former Wyoming Cowboy. And I saw on social media, Coach, you had an opportunity to have the team join up with him on a Zoom call. What did he tell the team?
Well, I had to make sure first that there was no English Premier League games going on, since he's a fanatical Premier League fan. And if Chelsea would have been playing, there would not have been a Zoom call. I know that for a fact. But I have a lot of respect for Larry from just seeing him grow into the player that he became at the University of Wyoming when I was at Boise State as an assistant. And just, his story. And that's, the story of a lot of our guys here at the University of Wyoming, where you have to have a chip on your shoulder. You got to invest in yourself. You got to be able to, put in the time to develop, because we're not going to get 5-star guys out of high school, but we can get those guys that have a chip on their shoulder, that want to prove people wrong, and really they want to work. And those are the type of guys that we want to build a program around. And there's no better person to ask than Larry Nance, who came into the University of Wyoming as a guy that was really recruited by nobody and left a first-round NBA draft choice.
The same could be said about Damian Lillard. And your role in recruiting him to Weber State, and I want to ask you about that in just a moment. Jeff Linder joins us, Wyoming head coach. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. But keeping with the topic of the whole recruiting and building up your team and the program, what's more challenging as a coach? You take over and you got to recruit the guys that are already on the team to stay and not transfer, or like you had to deal with, recruit your first class and do it in a short amount of time in the spring with this pandemic going on.
Yeah, I was, it's probably not the smartest time to take a new job, but for me, fortunately, if you're going to take a new job, it was only 90 minutes up the road, and it was all interstate and highway. And so when I got the job, where on a normal times, you have a lot of other responsibilities the day you take the job. But for me, I just came up, signed the contract, took a few pictures, and then my biggest priority was making sure that I kept the 4 guys that I needed to keep in the program: Hunter Thompson, Hunter Maldonado, Quan Marble, Kenny Foster. And luckily for me, they're all within basically 2 hours of Laramie, being in Cheyenne, Denver, Colorado Springs. And so got in the car. Luckily, I had relationships with most of those guys from my time at Northern Colorado and having either played against them or recruited them. So it wasn't like I was walking into their living rooms blind. So that definitely helped the cause. And to be able to get those guys on board, that took a lot of the pressure off. Now when we had to go and sign 8 new players, and there was nothing good. There's nothing good about the pandemic, but I do feel like it really helped us put together a really strong recruiting class with our, my assistants' ability to, they've come up the hard way too. I mean, they were, either, high school, junior college, small college, and where you just got to find a way to hustle and get on the phone and really try to sell the program that way. And we did a really good job to put together a really good recruiting class during a pretty crazy time.
Yeah, number 1 in the Mountain West in the spring. I saw a commendable job on your part. And you've been open about, like, you wanted to take this job because you knew that you could make an impact right away and get this program back to winning. And with that comes more fans in the seats. Hopefully we can see that, with attendance and having fans at games in the near future. But as far as like riling up in a good way, jazzing up the excitement in the fan base and convincing them to come to games when that opportunity presents itself in the future, what is that like? Because I know winning helps, but like as far as like grassroots for you, like what would be something you would like to do or are doing to try to get out in the community and say, hey guys, let's get to the games now. Come on, there's a long tradition of Wyoming basketball, and you need to check out this crop of talent I have on the floor.
Well, during normal times, I mean, I would definitely be making my way around the state. People probably don't realize how big the state of Wyoming is. And we definitely practice social distancing here. And that's why it's a good place to be right now. I mean, fortunately for me, my players have been here since the beginning of June. And, we've been able to do some things that a lot of places can't do because of that. But one of the big reasons why the University of Wyoming was so attractive to me from the University of Northern Colorado is I knew how much passion and pride the people in the state of Wyoming had in the University of Wyoming. It's the only state in the country of the 50 states where you only have one 4-year school. I mean, as I tell my guys, Alaska has Anchorage and Fairbanks. Wyoming, you only have the University of Wyoming, and then you have a bunch of junior colleges. And so if you win, if you put the right product on the floor, I mean, the people will come from all across the state, and people wear the brown and gold with pride. And I saw that from being so close to Wyoming, where I was at University of Northern Colorado, when people would come down for AAU tournaments that my sons were playing in. You knew who the Wyoming people were because they were wearing brown and gold, and they were wearing the Cowboy gear. And so that was a big reason for me to really take the job, because I just think there's so many programs nowadays where people really don't care, or they really just don't want to invest in the program. And I think this is one of the few places still out there where people really do care and people really want to see you do well.
It's hard to have fan apathy when they see the work, Jeff, that you've put in and the way you've been able to resurrect programs like you talked about, Northern Colorado. And the time you were also in the Big Sky with Weber State, and you were obviously hailed for being a big recruiter and helping convince Damian Lillard to join your team, and look at what he's done now. What screamed greatness to you when you first laid eyes on Dame that few others noticed early on?
That's a good question. I think the first thing you saw was, I mean, he had a really good feel for the game. He really knew how to play. He had some of those intangibles. I mean, even though they list him maybe at 6'2" or 6'3", I mean, he's probably more like 6'1", but he has really long arms and really big hands. And the other thing you knew too was that he was gonna grow. He was gonna get bigger. I mean, he was baby faced. I mean, up until really got into the NBA, and even at 30, he still looks like he's 20. But he knew he was going to get, he was going to grow because he graduated high school at 17. Wow. And that's some of the things that I think when you're looking for some of those late developers, you got to find those guys that have those late birthdays in June, July, August, where they turn 18 going into their freshman year of college. And Dame was one of those guys, and Chandler Hutchison, who plays for the Chicago Bulls, who I'd recruited at Boise State, was another guy that had graduated high school when he was 17 and had a late growth spurt. And, his size grew, and, his skill level was always there, and his feel for the game was there, but then everything else kind of grew into it. And so those are the type of guys you got to find, and those kind of guys that have been successful at the University of Wyoming as well.
A guy like yourself has, and I've seen articles written about this, where you're a very forward-thinking kind of coach, where I've seen assistants want to follow you because of what they say you're cutting edge, but you're also real, and you're also going to tell it how it is. And when you put together the fact of telling it how it is, and, I don't know, not lying is the right word, but just being straightforward with players, but also having that cutting edge progressive outlook on coaching. How do you think those two pillars are helping you through this process to be successful?
Well, I mean, it's a fine line that you walk every day. But I do think that, in this business, I mean, it's a lot of people want to be honest, but there's very few that are honest. And for me, I want to be up front on the front end, and especially in recruiting. As you see the number of transfers every year, a lot of that has to do with, there's a reason why they're leaving. And a lot of times is that they're told something on the front end that's not necessarily true once they get there. And so for me, I try to paint a little bit different picture, and I want the guys that want to be at the University of Wyoming for the right reasons. I want them to understand on the front end what they're getting themselves into. College basketball is not easy. I mean, once you add all the things that go into it in order to be a good player, to have a winning program, it's hard. I mean, everybody wants to win, but winning's really hard, and you gotta punch the clock every single day. And we're going to hold you accountable to that every day. And so we got to really try to find those guys that really do want to get better, that really do want to be in the gym, because everybody will tell you they want to be in the gym, but the reality is they all don't. I mean, they want to go in there and just, go and do whatever they do, but they really don't want to go in and work. And so we try to eliminate those guys on the front end. So once they get here, I mean, they knew what they signed up for. And they know that each day that, myself and my assistants, when we talk player development, it's what we do every day. And they have to see every day when we step on the floor, they step into our office, that they know that we're getting them better. And if that's the case, that's how you keep guys from leaving, when they know that you can get them better and that you care for them.
You certainly have done a great job of caring for perimeter defense. Some of the best in that department in the country when you were at Northern Colorado. You also have a fondness for your offenses to shoot the three, and you make it at a very high clip, so you're very efficient there. As much as you love the three ball, what do you think about a 4-point line?
Well, that's there's only about, and I know some of the NBA teams, they practice for spacing purposes, the 4-point line. But there's so few players that really shoot that shot. I mean, Dame being one of them. I saw Devin Booker yesterday.
Did you see that Devin Booker shot? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Now the difference was that was late clock, shot clock, where, Dame, I mean, he's pulling up from 32 feet, in transition, which now, I mean, I'm going to have to tell him he makes my job harder as a coach, because now these guys that come down, they think they can just come and, shoot these quick pull-up threes in transition. I'm like, listen, you can shoot that shot if you've just made 3 or 4 in a row, but understand there's a handful of guys in the world, and there's a reason why they make the money that they make, hundreds of millions of dollars, because they actually can make that shot at a high percentage. So if it's a heat check, I get it, but if not, we need to make sure we work that ball around to get a little bit better shot.
Wyoming head coach Jeff Linder is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. 2 more questions for you, Coach. I've seen that you guys have been able to make your way back in the gym, get some workouts in, and what an opportunity for you to finally see your guys in person, first of all, and then begin to implement your culture and what you're trying to accomplish on the court. So far, your impressions of the workouts, what's been the one thing as a team that you feel like they are ahead of the curve with, or that they have surpassed your expectations? I know it's still early. We're only in August and you've only had little time with them, but you're very impressed with where they are in a certain area or department.
Well, I think first, I got to, commend, our athletic department and our university as a whole, just making sure that we were the first ones really to kind of come out of the gate back in May to say, hey, we're going to try to make this bubble work on a college campus. And my athletic director, president, they've done a really good job of putting our athletes in a really safe place and making sure that they're monitored and making sure that everyone's put in a position where they do stay healthy. That's first and foremost. And then from there, I think more so just the maturity that my players have shown, knowing that, it's their responsibility to make sure that we have a season, and knowing that when you're 18 to 22 years old and you've experienced the last 4 or 5 months like they've experienced it, when school gets back in session, or when some of the things that 18 to 22-year-olds like to do, we all forget that, there's parties and things like that, and they got to make sure that they're smart, and if they really want to have a season, they got to make mature decisions and stay away from those things. Because you've seen a lot of these places around the country that brought kids back to campus. They were shut down because they didn't have the maturity to make the right decisions, where now you do go to a party and somebody happens to have it. Well, the virus is going to spread. And once it does, we're shut down. And so I've just been really impressed, especially with having a younger team, the maturity that they've shown to make the right decisions about what they do once they leave kind of the bubble that we have here on campus.
One of your assistants in Sundance Wicks, obviously love the first name, and he's been so important to seeing this bubble through and helping develop your identity as a coach here in Wyoming. How does that guy have so much energy?
Oh man, that's a good question. That's his separator, and that's for me. You're only as good as your assistant coaches, and for me, as a head coach, I got to do a good job of coaching them, not as along with the players, but the players feed off the energy that all my assistants bring, and I know Coach Wicks. He's known as the juice man, and he definitely brings the juice. But collectively as a staff, with Coach DeWeese, who came with me with the University of Northern Colorado, who knows exactly how I want things ran. Coach Vandiver is a guy that someone that I've known for 20 plus years. And I just think the cohesion and synergy as a staff as a whole is really what's going to allow us to kind of make bigger steps, because the players can sense if you're not all on the same page. And so that's our job. My job every day is to make sure the coaching staff's on the same page, and we make sure that we bring the energy needed that the players feed off of.
And it's going to happen. I am so thrilled for you bringing in this great crop of talent. Your success is imminent right away. As soon as we get basketball back and get games, I have all the confidence in the world that you are going to make a big splash early on and continue to rise and get this Wyoming program back to where it deserves to be, one of the best in the Mountain West Conference on a yearly basis. Coach Linder, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Bryan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and you're going to get me in trouble with all the fly fishing talk with my wife.